Hi guys, and welcome to my SPD madness. This is going to be a double review where I will be talking to you about two IEMs using SPD technology. One is the sequence to the Celest Gumiho, which is the PANDAMON. I think I'm saying it correctly. And the other one is TRN's take on the SPD technology, which is the let me see if I can say this probably, the Xuanwu. Both of them are hybrids, 1+1, as was also the Gumiho. The SPD technology was a technology that came out in the end of 2022. It was surrounded with a little bit of controversy because of the way that it was presented as being a real planar driver, when in reality it's not a planar driver. It's a technology which utilizes elements of planar technology, and then it utilizes elements as well of a DD driver. But the reality is this: it's an interesting technology. It's been well implemented, and the truth is that the Gumiho is a very nice sounding IEM. I'm guessing that controversy perhaps initially kind of hindered it from having more success than what it in essence deserved. But it was and is a really nice IEM. It plays really nice. It doesn't have any pretensions, in my opinion, of wanting to be a planar, since the sound is more reminiscent of that of a DD, and the implementation here with a single BA, helping out with the higher frequencies, since SPD technology does seem to have its limitations when it reaches about 3-4K, in terms of continued extension, that is. It was well done, it was well executed. It had a nice full mid bass, slight bit of a roll off into the sub, but it was nice bass, it was full, it was engaging, it was quick. So in that aspect, it kind of reminded us a little bit of the quickness of the bass that planar drivers can have. Nice execution of mids in terms of vocals, instruments, very organic sounding, and in the way that it was tuned, they did away with the usual harshness associated with BAs. They gave it a nice dip there to around the 4 to 6K area. They gave it a nice dip there to do away as well with any possible sibilance that could occur. And overall, it was a nice sounding IEM. It is a nice sounding, genuinely nice sounding IEM. Its problem, as is a problem with many IEMs actually today, when we actually look at the under 200 bracket range, is the highly competitiveness of that part of the market. I mean, obviously some areas more focused than others, but under $20 competition is crazy. Under $30 Dido, under $50 Dido, under $100 Dido. So it's just ridiculous. A company, and I really sometimes admire certain companies that how they are brave enough to actually launch a product without, in my opinion, sometimes the necessary market study of understanding what is available, and it's quite noticeable. You will either see a product being launched and it has a tuning which is completely outdated, or they just didn't even tune it. And I admire that courage. Let's put it that way. I don't really know what to call it, because if you're going to launch something, make sure that you know who your competition is, and make sure that you are giving something novel and genuinely well executed. Otherwise, just stick with what is safe and just do a more of a harmonious sounding IEM, and that's it. Anyway, on to what we are talking about today, which is this SPD madness. And then I've got a few IEMs here on the left hand side, which are IEMs which have become kind of market references or market comparisons. Some of them were late now in the year. I didn't include many more. I could have included a hell of a lot more IEMs here, but I didn't want this to be a 2-hour long review. I wanted to keep it nice and simple, and that's actually one thing I'm going to try and do more and more this year, is make my reviews still with what people have gotten used to in terms of excuse me, doing the crazy comparisons, but I want to try and condense it a little bit more, because I want to improve the engagement between my, people watching my YouTube channel and myself, and I want to keep you attached to the videos longer than what I have seen is the case. Although they are interesting, sometimes it doesn't happen as much as I would like. Anyway, on to what is here. So, first one out, to get it out of the way, we have the TRN, the Xuanwu 1+1. It gives us vibes of the TRN, the Kirin, which that, yes, is a true planar IM. Packaging is very much the usual TRN thing. This is actually another set of 4 sets that I have. I know you guys are going to mess up, but why does he have 4 sets? I'll get to that in a second. So IMs over there, nice solid enough construction, metal nozzle, semi-transparent. You can see a little bit of what's inside. It's nice, it's solidly built, it fits very nicely in the ear, no real issues. And then on this side here we have the usual TRN cable. I'm not going to open it, I think it's pointless, but the usual TRN cable, some tips and so on and so forth. Doesn't bring a carrying case, and that's it. I mean, for the $28.99, if I'm not mistaken, that this is being offered, they've basically given us everything that you got in the Gumiho at almost half the price. So you may ask, but then Akros, then what's the deal? I mean, if it's got this crazy price, then why isn't it more successful? Why aren't people talking about it? Since, I mean, it's kind of almost like a Gumiho. Well, if some of you will remember, I've mentioned it already quite a few times, when we are talking about hybrid IEMs, we have to create this balance between the drivers. There has to be this matching, this making sure that all the drivers come together in a cohesive manner that make it come that will reproduce then sound as much as possible as one single source, as one single thing. And obviously, the more multiple drivers you have, so in a 6BA, 8BA, 10, 12BA, 14BA units, that becomes increasingly more difficult, because it implies more complicated crossover networks. It implies having to take into account certain aspects with regards to phase and time correction and this and that. Well, yes, some of these things maybe not as important as it would be on a big home speaker with 10 drivers aside, but they are nonetheless there present. The length of the tubes that connect each one of these drivers will be a factor that can affect things as well, and so on and so forth. So it gets complicated. It gets really complicated. It's not like just taking a single DD, which these ones over here are, and you just tune it and that's it. No, hybrid IEMs get really complicated. And obviously a 1+1 is then the simplest upgrade over a basic DD. However, it brings with it a compromise, which is, if you want to driver match it more correctly or more coherently, and have a reproduction which is more organic, more smooth, more audiophile correct, let's put it that way, then you do that at a price of losing perhaps the ultimate detailed retrieval and losing out a little bit of that air and so on and so forth. And that's the case here in the Gumiho. If, on the other hand, you are wanting to go for more detailed retrieval and more sparklies and twinklies, then you go with the way that the Xuanwu has been tuned, which is definitely more V-shaped than the Gumiho. Although they graphically are quite similar, you can see a massive increase in terms of bass from this one to this one. Easily a 4 dB increase, and as well an equal increase in the upper frequencies, more so in the above 3-4K areas. That is where you see it. So it makes it for a pronounced V. I mean, it's a V, period. This means then that mids will suffer. There will be a little bit more recessed. You will lose a little bit of that nice engagement that some male vocals have, because they just become a little bit too laid back, too dark. there's a coloration to the sound and to things like cymbals and so on and so forth, which is excessive, which is not real. It just becomes a little bit fake. And you notice then obviously the negative aspects of a BA, which is that metallicness, that plasticness of the sound. It becomes more evident, and that's exactly what happens here with the Xuanwu. At lower volumes, it's not as noticeable. It's relatively tame and pleasant and so on and so forth. But once you start giving it a little bit of stick, then you start noticing that everything gets a little bit out of whack. And especially not so much the lower frequencies. Actually, if there's one thing that I have to say that I'm actually quite impressed with SPD drivers in general, is how good the bass can actually be. So it's not so much the bass that loses its composure, but it's the rest. It's a transition between mids and then the BA that then starts losing its posture. Could it be down to that tuning having been done excessively? Could it be down to the use of the actual BA not being a better quality BA? It could be. I'm not saying that maybe I don't know what BA they used in here. If it's the Knowles, Belzing, I forget the other popular Chinese brand. But anyway, I don't know what is in there. I don't know what's in here. It could be multiple. It could be quite a few brands, and obviously those brands all have different quality levels. But the truth is, while on the Gumiho, you have a very it's a mild V-ish presentation, but it's nicely done. It's got a nice engaging sound, and even the peak that you find at around the 8K area, which is more than just a couple of related peak, is not something which is bothersome or no. It's always very realistic kind of presentation. Over here, the presentation is nice at lower volumes, but the moment you just give it a little bit more power, it just goes out of whack and it becomes really too much in the higher frequencies. Too much. You start getting a little bit of sibilance. It just loses it, and it's a pity because, from what I was able to ascertain, the formula used in either one of these two is very similar. So I'm guessing that perhaps what TRN was trying to do is, we're not going to copy the signature of this so that it's not exactly the same. We're going to try and do our own thing, give it a little bit of our own touch. But I think they just went a little bit too far. I'm guessing that they could have given it a little bit more treble as compared to this one. A little bit more treble, a little bit more bass. It would have kind of maintained itself very similar, and it would have been a safer option. It's got one thing going for it, which is very good, which is obviously the price. I mean, it's $20 less than the Gumiho, so that's a bit of money. But other than that, I mean, it's fun, it's engaging. Yeah, it's got that going for it. Definitely, it's got plenty of ability to play more lively genres. It's a good IM to take to the gym. Let's be honest. So in noisy atmospheres, this will definitely shine because of all that amount of treble that it has and bass and so on and so forth. But if you're wanting to listen to a little bit more high quality, this is perhaps not the ideal. With all of this, again, I repeat, it's a fun IEM. It's good. It's got a nice engaging sound, fun, unoffensive in the sense that it's doing what I'm guessing was its premise, to be fun. It's doing that well. Period. Is it better than the Gumiho? No, it's not better than the Gumiho. The Gumiho is a superior IEM to it. The Gumiho, let's put it, if I have to kind of summarize it, the Gumiho is capable of playing or of reproducing music in a very much audiophile manner, while this, no. The coloration that it adds to music is excessive for it to become neutral in its playback. Okay? Having said that, then things like imaging, soundstage, detailed retrieval, layering, all of that stuff, again, and I repeat this, and I've said this many times before, we have to take things into the context of what they are. I can't be now, expecting the world. But when I look at those technicalities, perhaps the technicality that's the standout one is the detailed retrieval. It's capable of picking up a lot of the twinklies and little details here and there and so on and so forth. Soundstage and imaging, I found imaging, it was okay. Soundstage, I get a reproduction which is very closed in. It's not really expensive. Having said that, as well, keep in mind that with IEMs, the creation of a soundstage is all a psychoacoustic characteristic. I mean, that's the reality. You got something shoved in your ears. It's for it to be able to sound like it's expansive or out of your ears. It has to do with how the way it's been tuned, and it's not an easy thing to do, obviously. It's in terms of its timbre and tonality, it's completely off because of its excessive colored nature. So overall, I mean, if you really are looking for a SPD driver and your budget doesn't allow you to go up to the Gumiho, I would say yes, go for it, whatever. If, on the other hand, you are looking for something at around the $30 bracket that is more capable than the SPD in terms of overall sound, and you guys know that I don't really like comparing different technologies of IEMs. I don't, although it's inevitable. It's that comparison is inevitable, and I always ask you to please, tell me if you want me to compare something. The reality is this: you take a TIN Hi-Fi C2, and the TIN Hi-Fi C2 is a far superior IEM to the Xuanwu, far superior. It's capable of giving you music or producing music in a much more faithful manner, without all of that tizziness of the BA and without it losing its composure. This is a very, very nice IEM, honestly, very nice. Another one which is kind of proximal to the price of the Xuanwu is thanks to the 1 year, and again the same situation. Overall a way more capable IEM than the Xuanwu. It's equally fun, it's equally engaging. Only perhaps sometimes I did find that it gets a little bit unpolished in its upper mids, but overall, if I'm just comparing it with that, it is a superior IEM, and for good reason. And it's become a market favorite for solid playback capabilities. There's still another one. There's quite a few more, but there's still another one which is very capable IEM if what you want is a full bass reproduction and so on and so forth, which is the HBB collaboration with QKZ, the original one, the Zeus. This as well, in terms of being a more kind of V-ish signature, very, very full bass, very capable. So and around $17 or $18, it's a real no-brainer. And then you have quite a few as well, KZs and so on and so forth. But I didn't really, like I said, I was trying to keep things nice and simple. So overall, how does this compare to the Gumiho, which I think it's its direct rival? No, it does not. It does not beat the Gumiho. So that's the TRN out of the way. Period. Okay. Next, we have now the Celest PANDAMON, which is the updated usage of the SPD driver which we found in the Gumiho. So it's got an updated SPD driver and also a BA, and they've also changed the shell and changed the tuning. The cable, I'm obviously not using the stock cable. The stock cable is okay. I mean, it's nothing special. It's about the same as the stock cable that you found in the Gumiho. And I'm also not using the stock tips. I'm using these tips, the KB ear tips, which were the ones that allowed for the better fit in my ears. I also used some KB ears on the Gumiho. And if there's one thing that straight away I want to point out with regards to the PANDAMON and the Gumiho is they both have very unique shell designs. Okay, as you can see, very unique, very different shell designs. The funny thing is, however, is that, and I've got nothing against novel shell designs. Now, the funny thing is, however, is that the Gumiho, however crazy the shell is, it actually fits quite nicely, and it actually allows for a nice deep fit. This, on the other hand, kind of gives us a vibe, I don't know, of a timeless to a certain extent, this round kind of approach. But I don't know what it is about the length of the nozzle. There's something here that just is off. And the moment I try and use a smaller bore tip and basically shove the IM deeper into my ear, which I like doing, everything just knocks the cable, the connection just knocks on my earlobe, and I just can't get it to fit nicely. It has to kind of fit at a weird angle like this and that, and that was what caused me to actually end up using this large sized tip. So while on the Gumiho, the shell design, in my opinion, was novel but successful, the same cannot be said about the shell design of the Pandamon. My apologies. I'm sure that the engineers at Kynero were trying their best to be different, but in this case, I think they should have tried a little bit more. And I'm thinking, when I'm looking at this, I think the biggest issue with it is the way that the exit of the cable is been done. It should have been done at a slightly different angle, and maybe then that wouldn't hit on the ear, and it would just, I don't know. That, and the other thing which I don't want to come across like I'm beating on the IM, because it's not. This is me giving constructive criticism, because I know that many people will have these issues. That's the reality. It's this design of this faceplate. I mean, no, people, I'm sorry. I can understand that obviously being different culture, different values are instilled, or different values or things that, I can understand all of that, fine. But this faceplate makes this IM, which, and not wanting to now cut the review short, which is absolutely amazing in terms of its sound. A real and true, genuine improvement over, well, not an improvement, but it's a real positive side grade to the Gumiho. It makes that IM, or it makes this IM, which is so proficient, so well executed in terms of its sound, it makes it look like an IM for children. I'm not saying that don't have this faceplate like this, okay, but make sure that you are able to offer as well a more bland design, a more sober design. There could be this faceplate, for example, with an etching of the actual Pandamon on it. Just like a very chilled out execution of it. Instead, you get this implementation. It just makes it look very, I don't know. I don't like it. Period. I'm sorry, but I don't like it. Also, it seems to be like kind of an open back design, by the way that it is. Seems to be like a grill there, slightly. Let me see if I can. There you go. See, seems to be like a semi-open back design. And yeah, so in terms of the fit, it wasn't exactly the most successful. In terms of its overall look as well, on the faceplate especially, again, not the most successful execution in my books. Onto the sound, which is what you want to know. As I just mentioned, it's using a version 2 of the SPD driver, and the approach in terms of the tuning here for the Pandamon has been a more grown-up approach, more so than on the Gumiho. There's a definite, let's say, holding back of the bass. You can feel that it hasn't got as much bass as the Gumiho, no, and not as much bass definitely as on the Xuanwu. But the bass that is present, in my opinion, although this is not a bass head IM, is very good. It's a clean, it's detailed, well executed, well layered. It's very resolving. It's very capable. Doesn't get doesn't get in trouble when the track is more complicated. There were really very few instances where I thought that the bass wasn't in any way capable of doing what it was supposed to do. Unconditional from Soul Persona, it's a song that I like using quite frequently. Amazing, really well. The thumps were solid, were clear. They had good dynamics to them. Deeper from Pete Velasco, amazing. That track actually surprised me because it's a track that's got a very low bass to it, and the Pandamon did it. I mean, flawlessly, really flawlessly. Another song that I like listening to is "Swept Away" from Karel Duboc. Beautiful, once again, really nice. So in terms of the bass, perfect. Mids, the same thing. The mids on here are really good, really exemplary. To kind of make things more simple so that you guys can understand, this has basically been tuned in a way to polish up the Gumiho. So it took the formula of the Gumiho, which is a well executed formula, and just polished it up more. It has now got a pinna gain which peaks around 2, 5 to 6 more or less, and then just drops off gradually, very harmony style. And then you have a little bit of a peak there at 8K again because of the BA and also because of the coupler as well. And that's that. The bass remains itself almost flat. It's got very much a curve that when you look at it initially will remind you of a more relaxed curve, for example, of an SSR, an SSP, a Moondrop SSP. It's got that kind of a vibe, of a curve going for it. Very, very well balanced across the whole board. The SSP, yes, we knew it was a little bit. It's got a bigger pin again, and this one less. But when I show you the graphs now in a second, you'll understand better. So, it basically has all the traits that the Gumiho has. Really nice, organic style reproduction. The bass has been polished up. You lose a little bit in terms of quantity, but you've gained in terms of quality. It's a really high quality. There were instances even that I found this to be very much on the kind of playing level of a Truth Year's Hexa. And the Hexa, has gained quite a lot of momentum in the sub $100 price range in terms of a really mutually sounding hybrid. And to be honest, the only area where this actually loses out to the Hexa, in my opinion, is that it doesn't have that extra little bit of sparkle up top. Granted, this is one BA, the other one's got 3, so it would be expected that they could tune the 3 BAs in a manner that it would give that extra sparkle up top while still maintaining everything very un-BA-like, let's put it, or attempting to do that. Over here, if they were going to do that, we would fall into the mistake as the Xuanwu, which then becomes, fatiguing, two-colored. No, the last thing that you will find in the Pandamon is that it's not fatiguing. It's very easy to listen to, very laid back, very chilled out, like I said. All frequencies, in my opinion, very well balanced out. There's no real lack of anything. And a true, again, I'm going to say, I'm not going to consider it an upgrade, but a true side grade to what was done in the Gumiho. In my opinion, I think it makes sense to have both. Honestly, this will be more engaging with slightly more livelier songs, and this will give you the more chilled out, more relaxed presentation. And with jazz especially, this is absolutely amazing. I mean, like I was saying, Karel Duboc, I listened to quite a lot of Karel Duboc on here is absolutely something else. Spanish Harlem from Rebecca Pigeon, it for what it is, it plays it flawlessly, in my opinion. flawlessly, you know. Let me see another one. Moon River from Jacinta, which is a song that I've been listening to also lately. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Does it really nice. So overall, in terms of its sound, top marks. I think that the engineers have been able to really nail the tuning on here perfectly. That there's honestly nothing that I can falter, and if I am really going to nitpick, and is that okay, a little bit more sparkly would have been nice. But then again, you know, I am 50 years old already, so my hearing is not what it used to be. So that's really the only nitpick that I would consider. Having said that, this is not an IM for those that want all the sparkles and all the brightness in the world. No, if that's your thing, then you best look elsewhere. This is an IM for a person wanting a very balanced out, coherent reproduction of music along the lines of, like I said, the Truth Hear's Hexa, but with a little bit more of engagement in terms of the bass. The Hexa, in my opinion, was very well executed in terms of mids and highs, but the bass lacked a little bit of guts. This has got way more guts than the Hexa, way more. Although neutral, it's got way more guts. This also reminds me, for example, of the bass that you would find on a HE Sound Heart Mirror. The HE Sound Heart Mirror, many people said, it's got very low bass, it's very chilled out, very like, no, the bass there is actually quite good. It actually is very good. It's a quick, textured, detailed bass that is very capable. It's not gonna rattle your brain, no, but in terms of quality, yes, definitely, and it's got more than ample quantity to keep up with the rest of the representation of the heart mirror. And this is the same thing. More than enough bass to keep up with the rest of the sound spectrum and give a nice, fun, engaging reproduction of sound. In terms of the technicalities, timbre and tonality, yes, top marks, very, very correct. Soundstage and imaging, about the same as the soundstage and imaging on the Gumiho, which means it's fine. Not a very big stage, but it's fine. Detailed imaging is pretty decent, pretty accurate. Detailed retrieval, again, is adequate for what it is. It's not the most detailed revealing IM, but I like the fact that they have, like I said before, I like the fact that they've opted to not let it come across as overly detailed at the price then of being harsh and you know, unpolished. It's got a very polished reproduction of sound, in my opinion. And if this is again a sign of what Celest is doing in terms of their tuning, I can only imagine that future models will again have a big improvement. I mean, as far as I can say, right now, all other manufacturers doing SPDs are playing a catch-up game to Celest. That they are the ones are in the forefront. That's my opinion. Again, as I just did earlier, in terms of a quick comparison to what else you could get at around this $50 to $60 price range, because this is $59 if I'm not mistaken. You have the tin hi-fi, the C3, and while before when I was talking about the Xuanwu, I would say that, you know, get a C2 because it's definitely better. There's no comparison there. In this case, I'm going to say that you can't go wrong with either. You can't. This is an amazing IM, the C3, really good, really good. As is, for example, the QES Cadenza, okay, which I've also got here, and this has got $35. This has got a $35 price tag. But neither one of these two are better than the Pandamon. They have areas, especially in the higher frequencies, where they have a little bit more detail, and that detail then reflects itself to a little bit more capability in terms of certain technicalities, soundstage and imaging and so on. But overall, they all trade blows. There's no outright winner here. Okay. The other one, which I just kind of was by my hand and I just took and I listened to it straight away, is the ZS10 Pro X, and it's a very different tuning to that. This is markedly a V-shaped tune, but it's a very nicely done V-shaped tune. And again, at this price, and this is not saying that this is better than that, that is better than this, because they're two different tunes. At this price range, you have this. So if you like something a little bit more colored, a little bit more lively, a little bit more in your face with regards to bass and treble, definitely this is an option. This is a kind of a tuning which is what TRN opted for in the Xuanwu, and over there it's just been overly done. Over here it's been perfectly done. And they, TRN themselves, have got another IM which has got a similar tuning to this, but it's been very nicely done, which is the SD5. But anyway, this is not about the SD5 or the KZ. This is about the Pandamon and how the Pandamon compares to its predecessor, or to its sibling, the Gumiho, and how it is then positioned in the overall position or in terms of SPD availability. In my opinion, and although there are not tons of SPDs out there still available, you've got the Uni-Ears TBS01, and you've got Seek Real Dawn, and you've got these two as well, or these three, sorry. For me, right now, the best SPD implementation is definitely the Pandamon. It's the most balanced, it's the most coherent, it's the one that makes the most sense in every aspect, price, sound, everything. It's real only detail that needs attention, in my opinion, and I'm sure that there will be more people that will mention the same thing once the IM gets more out there in the market, is the fitment, which, no. This is one area where there's really no excuses for me. This is a make or break it aspect of an IM. It can be an amazing sounding IM. If it doesn't fit properly, you're basically done for. And that's where I think that perhaps here that they should have done a little bit more work with regards to that. And then this is just a personal thing. The aesthetics of it are not the most pleasing. I really genuinely hope that when an improved SPD from Celest comes out, that they will have paid attention to a little bit more the visual aspect of it, because it needs to be also equally paid attention to. Anyway, guys, this is the review section. Basically, I'll just show you now the graphs quickly so you guys can have an idea. And well, contrary to what I was trying to say, which I was going to keep the review nice and short, this is going on now forever. Anyway, see you guys. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section of my review for this SPD madness. And straight away we're greeted with the graph of the TRN, and as you can see, definite V shape. And in itself, when you look at it, you see it's a V shape, but you don't get a real perception of how bright it is or not. I mean, we're talking about a variation, a frequency variation in terms of amplitude of 77 to 89. It's roughly 12 dB, so definitely a V shape. A little bit of a bleed here into the mids and so on, but nothing really tremendous. But to put this into context, okay, this is now the one I've just added on now, is the graph of the Celest Gumiho, and that has a amplitude variation of 76 to 86, so around 10 dBs. Okay, and you can definitely see, I mean, there's a huge difference in terms of the bass output between one and the other, and again, in terms of the output here in the upper mids and presence area. And where you see things really getting out of hand is not so much over here, okay, but it's over here in this area. While the Gumiho has this nice dip here, you know, at 4, 5, 6K, which contributes to taking away any sense of sibilance or harshness or so on and so forth. The TRN kind of maintained itself plateaued from 2K when it peaks more or less, and stays flat at a 2, 3, 5, 7 dB difference, and it's noticeable. It's harsher. It's less polished. Low volume, not so much, but when you give it a little bit of volume, it gets out of hand, and you need to start noticing that metallicness of the BA timbre and so on and so forth. Anyway, that's the TRN with the Celest. As I said, an interesting implementation, but I think they got a little bit carried away and kind of spoiled things. The other one, actually, let me leave here the Gumiho. The other one is obviously the Celest PANDAMON, and that is let me just align this, and that is, in my opinion, right now the best SPD implementation that you have. They've slightly reduced below 100 Hertz roughly. There's like a 2, 3 dB maybe difference, but it's really not noticeable as much as what the graph would want you to believe. It's less noticeable than that. The pin again, instead of peaking just before 2K, it now peaks past 2K, and it's got very much that harmonish kind of slope dropping peak, a couple related peak there, and the BA is much more subdued in the PANDAMON as compared to the Gumiho, but that's not as noticeable as you would think by looking at the graph, and also because of the whole energy balance of the frequency spectrum being done in a different manner, it sounds perfect. It's like, as I mentioned, it reminded me to a great extent to the, for example, the presentation of the hexa, and I'm actually going to put the hexa on now so that you guys can see what I mean. Let me take away the Gumiho and just leave the hexa together with the PANDAMON, and you will see straight away when I align them now what I'm talking about. In terms of the bass, the PANDAMON is more engaging. It's got a little bit more energy here in the meat of the bass, in that 60 to 300 Hertz area. It's got a little bit more meat, and it's noticeable, and it's more engaging, and it's satisfying more in the music. And then the difference that really makes the hexa stand out is obviously having 3 BAs allows for an execution in terms of the mids and highs, which is more correct. And this difference here that you notice here on the treble, on the twinklies and sparklies, like I call it, is perceivable, it's noticeable, and it just gives this cleanliness overall to the hexa. But the reality is, if I'm actually looking at this area here between, let's say, the 1 to 7K area, 1 to 8K, they are very equally matched. And there were a number of songs where I was really quite impressed by how well the PANDAMON was holding its own and keeping up with the hexa. And in that aspect, I have to give my congratulations once again to the tuners of Celest. They've done a good job, and this Celest is definitely a properly tuned IEM, and one that is a good sign of things to come in my view. The other one, which I mentioned as well in my review, that I kind of got hints of it with the PANDAMON, was the HE sound, the heart mirror. I'm just going to change the color so you guys can see it better. Okay, so let me take away now the hexa. put the heart mirror, and if you can recall during the review I was saying that the bass was very much equal, so on and so forth. And there you go, my friends. The bass, everything, bass, the way the pinna gain is done, the way it kind of maintains itself across the whole of that board. It's just that the heart mirror's got then that extra energy there past 8K, which is again noticeable, and just gives it that little bit extra of air of 3D voluminous, let's put it that way, to a certain extent. But yeah, that's it. There you go, guys. Pandamon. Very nicely tuned IM in my opinion, very good solid execution, and one that is definitely a good way forward for Celest and for Chimera. I've just added on now the diagram, or the graph, sorry, for the Gumiho, so that you guys can see how things were adjusted and more polished up, as I mentioned in the review. More polished bass, more polished in the way that it marries then with the mids. It's a truly really nice IEM, the Pandamon. And that's it, guys. As always, like and subscribe. Any questions, please feel free to ask, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.